come on, you can do it, come on. Oh, you can do it, you can do it, you can do it. That was me when I was 8 years old, watching a movie with my dad in Brooklyn, New York. Just me and my dad, my mom and sister went out shopping. It was a Sunday, and it was a great movie that I watched with my dad. It was called The Champ. And that's what I was doing. I was boxing while the champ was boxing in the movie. And I love this movie so much. I could always remember it. Even all these years that went by. This man was in his 30 years old. He was the father. He was called the champ, but he was having a lot of problems with his heart and moving around. But he was fighting because he needed the money. My dad was in his 30s. He had arthritis all over his body. So I kind of related the champ to my father because my father always provided for us, me and my sister and my mom. My mom was working too. She was providing also. My dad had those disabilities, so to speak, and yet he always provided for us. The little boy in the movie was 8 years old. And his mom and dad got a divorce, so his dad was the only thing that he kind of clung to because he didn't see his mom that much. And the boy was rooting for his dad. Come on, champ, come on, champ. And that's why I was going like this in the movie. And my father says to me, Butch, you always call me Bush. I always call him Daddy. You're going to hurt yourself. You're going to knock yourself out. And I almost did 3 times. And it was just a beautiful movie. When they got to the end, he really wasn't supposed to fight this fight. The doctor gave orders that you got to be very careful, but he did. He fought the fight, and he was getting knocked down. But then I was rooting for him, and I was trying to give him my energy. Then finally, at the end of the movie, he got up, and he knocked the guy out, and he won. He was the champ. Then he walked over to his dressing room. He fell down. And when he fell down, he was talking to his son, and his son goes, "You're going to be okay, champ. You're going to be okay." And then all of a sudden, he died. The man died. His father died. I was 8 years old. I had no perception of that. I had no idea of that at 8 years old. Yeah, I had double pneumonia when I was 5 years old, but my crisis was I didn't want to go to the hospital, leave my family a few days or weeks or whatever. But that was my father going to die? I love my mom and my sister so much, but they always seemed healthy with so much energy. My dad, you could see he was struggling, and yet he always was there for us. I didn't want to say goodbye to my dad. And I was very quiet at the end of the movie because I had no idea what was going on in my mind. My whole body was shutting down. My dad said, "Butch, are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What's wrong?" And thank goodness my mother and my sister came back from shopping, distracted him. I went in my room and I cried. You know, the years go by, you grow up 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. And I got to say that, yeah, 8-year-old kids today have perception of that. A lot of them have perception of that. And the families talk about it, but we never talked about it. I had no perception. I was crying in my room. But like I said, time goes by. School continues. Graduation continues. And in that time, my dad had a heart attack. But he made it. He was having a struggling walking, but he walked like this with his head down. But he made it, and he was working in labor jobs to put food on our table. So he was doing okay. And then all of a sudden, I got my orders to go to Vietnam in 1965. After I graduated high school, that same year, I got to go to Vietnam. Yeah, and it was some basic training. I was in Colorado for 6 months, and then I got my orders. that long drive to the airport with me in the back seat with my dog, Bootsy, and my mom in the front seat with my dad driving the car. We got to the airport. In those days, you can go all the way to the gate. They stopped it, unfortunately, in 2001. But now, here I am in the airport, and I'm saying goodbye to them, and you can feel the tears coming. And I walked to go on the plane, and I was contemplating whether to turn around and say goodbye, but I didn't want to say goodbye to my dad because I didn't know that if I got back from Vietnam, that he'd be still living, because my heart was always there, that he was an ill person, but he had the energy to keep on going past that. But then I decided I wanted to turn around, and I turned around to wave, but they weren't there. And then I found later on, when I was in Vietnam, I wrote some letters home, and I found out that my dad just couldn't take seeing his son and not knowing the uncertainty if he's going to see me again. And I found out that they had to even call an ambulance and get some help for him. But he pulled through the years, and I pulled through Vietnam. And I was so sad because a lot of my buddies didn't make it home. But I got home, and my dad, through that time, had a car accident. He had more things about his heart. He had problems with his colon. He had a lot of things going on, but he was still providing for the family. He was still providing. He was still providing. He was still providing. He was still providing. Even though I got married, my sister got married, my mom was still working, my dad was still working. And then in 1981, he was told that he has to have his leg amputated. And I went to the hospital every night to spend time with my dad, even if he was sleeping or whatever. And there was times he was in a coma. In 1982, I went to go see my dad, and he was in a coma. My mother was sitting on the bed. There was an empty bed, sitting there with her friend Mary, and my dad was in a coma. And I was told from the doctor the day before, your dad looks like he's not going to come out of this coma at all, and you're going to lose him. But I wanted to tell you that because I know how much you go there all the time to see your dad, and how much you love him and he loves you. I'm sitting there and I'm saying to myself, it looks like I'm going to have to say goodbye to my dad, even in my mind or whatever, because he's in the coma, he's laying there, and he's not eating, and he goes in and out of these comas, but this was the longest one he was in, and I didn't want to say goodbye. And it was like that 8-year-old kid fighting. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And then all of a sudden, as God is my witness, as Jesus is my witness, I heard, Butch. And I looked up. My father moved his head from the pillow, and he went, Butch, I love you. I love you, Butch. Give me a kiss. Give me a kiss. And I kissed my father, and he says, I love you so much, Butch. And I said, I love you too, Daddy. And he put his head back on the pillow. And the next day, my dad died, June 18, 1982. Of all these years, I did not want to say goodbye to my dad, but yet he said goodbye to me. Wow. In my heart, he's gone now 38 years, but in my heart, my dad will always be my champ. Yes, my champ, my dad, yes.